All right, we're back on the Common Sense Club and Scott Henn Show. It's a pleasure to welcome into our studios AnnMcElhinney. And I love the last part of her name, which is Irish, Henny, because that was a long-standing nickname I had. So McElhinney is Ann's last name, Irish journalist and documentary filmmaker, done stuff for the BBC, CBC, and independent films as well. Not Evil, Just Wrong was fabulous. The True Cost of Global Warming Hysteria. Mind Your Own Business, another great one. They've just done a wonderful job. And now their latest project is something called FrackNation. And it's great to have you in Tioga, North Dakota in the oil patch. How are you?
Oh, I've just written it on Facebook. I'm like a child at Disneyland. Do you know that? Because I've wanted to come here for the longest time, and I feel like I'm going to burst out crying at any moment because it's wonderful, and I'm very happy to be here, Scott.
Tell us about FrackNation. What's the purpose of FrackNation?
Well, you know, about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, somebody asked me to write a review of the film Gasland. It's a film by a guy called Josh Fox. It's incredibly terrifying, basically saying that we're going to all be wiped out. We're all going to die, and before we die, we're going to stop fancying our wives, and our dogs are going to walk funny. And I watched that, and I mean, it's very, very effective. It's very well done. It's very artistic. And, the central moment in it, the money shot, as they say, of the film, is where a regular citizen lights his water on fire and boo, out of the faucet in the kitchen. Very, very impressive. And according to the film, that happens because of fracking. So fracking starts in the area, suddenly your water becomes flammable. Well, it doesn't take a genius, by the way, to even just look at the internet and realize that that's fraudulent, that's a lie. That's a lie. People in America have always been able to light their water in certain parts of America, obviously not like in New York City and Manhattan, but in lots and lots of parts of America, people have been able to light their water because basically you're very, very lucky. You're an incredibly lucky country that your ground is so full of minerals and beautiful stuff like that basically gas seeps up. So that's why in the 1669, Native Americans called towns burning springs. They were clever, the Native Americans, because they realized they could light the water. And that's why about 5 towns in America are called burning springs. It's no news. To people here in North Dakota, I'd say this is no news. People used to do it in Pennsylvania. It was like a trick. I've interviewed people in their 70s who said, sure, we did that when we were children. In the days before television, it's quite sad what people did for entertainment. But here's what happened. This guy puts this in the film. It's wrong. It's untrue. People were always able to light their water because of the amount of methane that naturally occurs. He puts that in. He terrifies people. And then he goes on to make this huge film. So we decided to confront him. We confronted Josh Fox, the filmmaker, at a Q&A in Chicago and said to him, did you know this? Did you know that people in America could always light their water on fire? And you'd be surprised, Scott, by what he said, because, I mean, it's shocking to me.
I saw it on your website. He basically is saying, yeah, I know, of course that, but it's not relevant to this.
It's not relevant. You know something? Well, we thought it was really relevant.
Yeah.
And we thought, if you're wrong about this, what else are you wrong about? And we started off by going to Dimmock, Pennsylvania. We still hadn't even decided to make a movie. But we went to Dimmock, Pennsylvania, and we heard a story there that broke our hearts and filled our hearts with courage to keep going, because, if the media won't tell the truth, and I have to say, as I said, I'm very emotional this morning. I just love being here. But Andrew Breitbart was a great friend of mine, and I was with him, and I was with him the weekend before he died, and I am not over it yet. I can't get my head around it at all. But this is what Andrew's life was all about: the narrative. Don't let them dominate the narrative. Don't let them tell narratives that are untrue. This narrative about fracking is being told by Hollywood elites who will not tell the truth. And so we're forced to go out there and make a film and tell the truth. And by the way, we're forced, but we're very happy to do it. And we went to the public and asked them to help us. And the response from the public has been just really very, very humbling and very satisfying and emotional. Again, very emotional, because people want the truth. Let's hear the truth. By the way, if something bad's about to happen, we need to know about it.
How can the public help you?
Well, actually, funny, we did a Kickstarter campaign, and it's finished now. That Kickstarter campaign, we looked for $150,000 to finish the film. We got $218,000 in the first round of the Kickstarter. We're probably going to come back and ask for help with getting distribution for the film. And I will be back on to you, Scott, when that happens. But right now, we're finishing the film. Right now, what people can do for me, really, and I'd love them to do this, is to go on FrackNation Twitter feed, to go on FrackNation Facebook page, join the conversation. We need to build up an army to take on the Sierra Club, to take on the NRDC, to take on all these greeny outsiders who have no idea about the land, who don't know anything about the land.
You know, what they are is political science folks. I mean, this isn't science. in the sense of any danger over this technology. And you're going to meet some people today. A prime example, Kathy Nessett is probably one of the world-renowned experts on the Bakken. And, the story I love about Kathy is that, her family farms. And in the time between the bust and the new boom, this time, they farm the land. Farmers care more about the land than anybody on the planet Earth. You know what I mean? And I think the opponents really, they just don't like fossil fuel development.
Yeah.
I mean, they are trying to use their opposition to this technology and for bogus arguments because they disagree with the idea that we ought to pull oil out of the ground.
Yeah.
So why not just have full disclosure? Look, you, rather than try and say, hey, this is ruining things or it's bad for the environment or anything else, just tell us what you really want, and that is, bankrupting coal companies and not having oil development, and that's what they're trying to do, isn't it? I mean, that's what the lie that needs to be exposed.
Yeah, exactly. You're so right. It's an anti-fossil fuel movement by people who themselves love fossil fuels. In their own lives, they love fossil fuels. You get the likes of James Cameron flying around the world in a plane, the likes of Al Gore, who cannot be extracted from a plane for love nor money. These people who love fossil fuels, in their own lives, in their personal lives, when their children are sick or in hospital, they love those fossil fuels. But in their public life, they say something different, which is hypocrisy, by the way. It's hypocrisy. As I love to say to people, when your child is in the hospital, my God, and you're this proponent of wind and solar power, and you're out there, what would you do? You'd be praying for wind, praying for the sun to shine. No, actually, do you know what you'd be praying for? You'd be praying for coal. You'd be praying for coal, you'd be praying for oil and for natural gas because you can depend on that. And I love that story. I mean, I speak around the country. I love that the recent story out of Los Angeles. The second smallest child ever born on the planet Earth, who went home a healthy baby with her parents. Now, do you know what kept that baby alive? It's electricity, It's electricity. And by the way, that story would not happen in Central Africa. It wouldn't happen in Central Africa. And it happens regularly here. We have these wonderful stories. And all of it, it's all about oil. It's all about oil. It's all about natural gas. It's all about coal. It's keeping the lights on and it's keeping us safe. And I get very irritated with elites who are loving and living with fossil fuels. If you really believe all this stuff, well, go do it. Go ahead and do it. Cut yourself off the grid, but really cut yourself off the grid. You have to give up air travel completely. You have to give up the car completely. Because, by the way, the electric car, for God's sake, the electric car is run by coal. I love doing that in Los Angeles when I watch people driving past in their Priuses, and I kind of laugh and I go, do you know, ha 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 ha, that car is being powered by coal. My God, do you know that? And apparently coal.
Dirty coal, you should probably throw in there,
whatever.
Right?
Dirty, clean, whatever you call it. Exactly.
Unbelievable. What's fun, though, to have you here and to help tell this story to the rest of the country. North Dakota has the fastest job growth, the lowest unemployment, has transformational, generational, game-changing wealth as a result of, folks driving a truck and making $125,000 a year. Great. Not to mention the mineral rights and the family, impacts from all of that. I mean, you're seeing it everywhere around us. I mean, this is what from a very simple thing, using our God-given resources to lift planes from the air and fuel our economy. Yeah. You are changing you're single-handedly changing the economy. That's why the story needs to be told to the rest of the nation. Yeah,
I know, it's great, and it's very exciting. I'm so glad to be here. I can't believe it. I mean, it's just a marvelous. It's kind of a dream come true for me.
We're going to talk more about the film FrackNation and the role North Dakota play. Ann's tour of North Dakota should be in Minot tonight. Speaking to the North Dakota Policy Council. Speaking also. Wednesday in Bismarck, back in Williston on Friday. We're going to introduce her to Jason Lewis, who will be doing his national radio show here as well on Friday, so stay tuned for more with Ann McElhinney on the Common Sense Club after this break. Don't go away. We're chatting with Ann McElhinney, filmmaker who's in Tioga, North Dakota, speaking, by the way, tonight in Minot at the Holiday Inn for the North Dakota Policy Council, 7 o'clock tonight, in Bismarck tomorrow night at the Doublewood Inn. I'm guessing Rob Porter, the Say Anything blog, is letting folks know that. Rob does a lot of good work for the North Dakota Policy Council, so hopefully there'll be a nice big crowd at both events, but you ought to be there. If you're a North Dakota Policy Council member, you get in free. Tonight, 7 o'clock, and then 7 o'clock tomorrow in Bismarck as well with the filmmaker Ann McElhinney, and the new film is FrackNation. Now, you and Phelim, your husband Phelim, is he Irish as well?
Yes.
All right, and so tell us about your journey. How did you come to to be here and telling these stories?
Oh my God, it's quite the story, which I often say to audiences. I look out and I think, my God, how did I get here? We were journalists working in Romania. Phelim was working for the Financial Times, and I was a freelance journalist working for the Sunday Times and the RTE a lot and BBC. And we came across a story about a mine being opened in Transylvania. A Canadian mining company wanted to open a gold mine, and the story had been reported, by the way, by New York Times, CNN. Everyone had been there. It was a big story, and the story basically was evil Canadians, innocent locals, and then Greenpeace, two activists from Greenpeace, foreigners, who were defending the locals from this awful development, which was going to destroy the land, pollute everything, and basically kill everyone. Everyone was going to die. The usual kind of environmental story.
Yeah.
I went up very much believing that story. I kind of had my story written before I got there. And I interviewed the two women from Greenpeace. I interviewed the people from the mining company, and I interviewed locals. And I discovered, my world changed. Sometimes people find Jesus, and their life changes dramatically. Things can happen in your life and you look back and think, wow, that was the moment. Well, my life changed, and I realized that the enemy of the poor is not the Canadian mining company, It's Greenpeace. It's environmentalists, because they have no standards, and they have an ideology, and they will lie.
It's a religion.
So these two women lied.
You mentioned Jesus. It's a religion for them, isn't it?
It's a religion. In the absence of religion, they found this thing, and it's Gaia or whatever, Mother Earth or whatever. But in order to preserve Mother Earth, they will use all methods are open to them, particularly lying. So Greenpeace have no standards. On the Greenpeace website today, if you want to check it out, you can look it up. That Rocha Montana, that mine, which has, by the way, never opened, because of two women. That's the power of Greenpeace and all their money, their gazillions of dollars that they get from George Soros. The power of that lie. They basically tell lies. They terrorize people with things that aren't true, and they change the world. But they change the world for a bad reason. The lie that they told was that the Canadian mining company were illegally taking people off their out of their homes. Illegally taking people out of their homes. Well, illegal is easy. If somebody has done an illegal thing, there'll be a police report, because people go and report it to the police. Well, I've been asking Greenpeace for years now, I don't know how many years now, to give me the name of one family illegally removed from their home in that town. Do you think they got in touch with me? So if the mining company lied, by the way, if you're here in the oil patch, if the oil companies lie, they're finished. It's all over the newspaper, because everyone wants them. The media want them to fail. The media are watching them like hawks. They're flying around waiting for an error. So the mining company or the oil company have to be awfully careful. The standards are not the same for the mainstream media, and they are not the same for environmentalists. Environmentalists just make it up as they go along. And once you find them out on one of their lies, they just move on. There's no apology. They just move on. And we were talking before we came on air, Scott, about the EPA, who now, on the fracking issue, have three times gone out, all guns blazing, accusing oil companies of polluting the water by fracking. In all three, they've had to backtrack. Wyoming, Pavilion, Wyoming, Dimmock, Pennsylvania, and in Fort Worth, Texas. This is incredible. When is enough? So my life changed. Anyway, basically, I did this story in Romania. I realized that environmentalists were unaccountable and dangerous. Not just unaccountable, but because of their unaccountable nature, they're dangerous, because lies hurt people, because development helps people. Development is incredibly important. Without it, we all go back to the Stone Age. So these people are very dangerous, and I've fallen into this very odd career of exposing environmentalists and exposing environmental lies. And in the fracking world, I have a lot of work to do.
Tell us about the movie Not Evil. Just wrong.
Yeah. Well, we first of all, after discovering this story in Romania, we made a film called Mind Your Own Business, which anyway, anyone out there who's listening who has a daughter or a son or a grandchild who's an environmental extremist, I would suggest you force them to watch Mind Your Own Business and then ask them to explain what side of the argument they're on. We made that film, Mind Your Own Business. And after that film came out, we got death threats. It was very odd. I thought, my God, death threats, what's that about? And not because, and no one criticized us for factual errors. Nobody. People said, I hope your children are born handicapped. I hope you get what Hitler's henchmen got. That's what we got. Nothing about factual errors in the film. But a very strange huge bunch of correspondence started to come into us about DDT. And I'm presuming, Scott, that your listeners know that story. DDT was a pesticide overused, by the way, in America. You know, it was very effective, and so it was used a remarkable amount of it. There's a lot of listeners out there of a certain age who will remember playing in the wake of the clouds of DDT that were being pushed out the back of trucks going around the countryside of America. But a guy called Paul Muller discovered another use for it. And he discovered that if you sprayed the inside walls of a house in a place where there was malaria, everyone would be safe. And everyone would be safe, children would be safe, and adults would be safe. And it was a marvellous thing. The guy won a Nobel Prize for that, as I like to say, when the Nobel Prize had a value. Sorry, dig. And this was an amazing thing, and basically, you know, it was a game changer for malaria. Malaria, by the way, not AIDS. You know, despite what the liberal media tell us, malaria is what kills the world. That is the biggest killer in the world. Malaria, not AIDS. Malaria, and it doesn't get enough press, of course, but. So this amazing thing was discovered, and then unfortunately a rich woman from America called Rachel Carson wrote a book called Silent Spring, where she made, she did a kind of an Al Gore thing. She did a thing similar to the Gasland thing. She connected two disconnected things and said, if this is happening, it must be connected to this. And she said, we're using all this DDT and the birds are dying. Well, it wasn't true. The birds had been dying before that because of farm practices. But her book was very emotional, again, very emotional, short on facts, high on emotion. And because of it, basically, DDT was banned worldwide. Now, in 2005, the World Health Organization came out and said we were wrong. We were wrong to have ever banned DDT. It's the best way to save children's lives. In the meantime, there are 30 million dead children. Mostly children, I should say. 30 million deaths, and that's very, very conservative. And most of the deaths are under 5-year-olds. And we made a film to look at the DDT story. And we asked, Rachel Carson was this particular person, very popular in the media, a darling of the left, very, very popular. And we thought, who is the modern day Rachel Carson? And we discovered the modern day Rachel Carson really is Al Gore. Mm-hmm. So we put those two stories together, and it also fitted very well because Al Gore says the greatest human being that was ever born, ever, living or dead, greatest human being is Rachel Carson, a woman responsible for the deaths of about 30 million children. So there you go. So we looked at this story, and we looked at the story of, Al Gore says that CO2 emissions are going to kill us. Well, I happen to think differently, as do an awful lot of other people too. I actually, the proof is there that fossil fuels have brought us out of a state of basically living, awfully scared of nature, I suppose, actually. We were in a situation before we developed fossil fuels, we were slaves to nature. The cold killed us. The heat killed us. Not anymore. So I happen to think, and a lot of other people think, that the fossil fuels are great. And until we find an alternative, let's keep using them.
Let's do it. And you can do it, again, without any contamination of the water, despite the lies from the global warming extremists, the environmental extremists, and everything else. Ann McElhinney is with us. Another segment coming up to talk more about when you'll be able to go to the theater and see FrackNation for the truth on hydraulic fracturing and the truth of the game changer it is to our economy. Coming up. Don't go away, folks. All right, final segment of the Common Sense Club and Scott Innes Show for a Tuesday. Reminder, I'm off tomorrow. Eugene Grainer in my spot. Back on Thursday. We'll be back with Jason Lewis on Friday, live from the oil patch as well. Becky just sent a note saying, please tell Ann I want her to be our new president's press secretary. She'll set them all straight. She, like you, I think, shares she, like me, rather, shares just an affinity for your passion for this topic. It's so awesome.
Oh, thank you very much.
It is. It's great. Mark has a question for you. 855-200-1776. Mark in Grand Forks, you're up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a native of North Dakota, but I lived in California for about 10 years and worked in the construction industry there. I lived in a county where Earth Day was founded, and radical environmentalism was out of control. They essentially controlled the county, the radical environmentalists. Logging was a big issue, but as I studied the issue, I became aware that it was, in fact, the large logging companies who were working with the environmentalists at the state level to write legislation that, in effect, all it was doing was driving out competition. And they were beginning to just essentially monopolize the market through this environmental legislation because smaller logging outfits could not bear the cost of regulation. They couldn't pass that on to the consumer. Now, we see this at a national level with the job czar, Jeffrey Immelt, CEO of General Electric, pushing a carbon tax to promote his smart grid ideas, which are really stupid and anti-growth and anti-capitalist. We see Goldman Sachs pushing for cap and trade to fund their carbon trading scheme. We see British Petroleum, who's partnered up with UC Berkeley in California, the most liberal university perhaps in the world, and they have gotten one of their executives placed in the Department of Energy as a deputy undersecretary, and now they're pushing their clean energy program. So here we have a fascist kind of relationship between the environmentalists and large multinationals who want to use these regulations to drive out competition and create monopolies in global markets.
I think Mark's on a very important point. Big business is almost big corporations. Big business is almost as bad as big government, isn't it?
I completely agree. Crony capitalists. Thanks a million for phoning in, Mark, because I just think that's that's an incredibly important point. We were talking earlier about Andrew Breitbart, and Andrew was always talking about, I hate those people. I hate those people. Well, that was one of his phrases, and I hate those people. I hate those crony capitalists, people who won't make a buck, make their business work by the traditional methods of selling goods at an attractive market price for the public to buy. And instead of doing good business and being clever and offering a great service to the public, they go and get into bed with government and get government to do them favors, to them special favors, so that they can get ahead and so that they can actually opt out of the marketplace, because they actually aren't competing in the marketplace. They've asked the government to make them a favourable, and that's why the government shouldn't subsidise anybody. Nobody should be getting subsidies from the government. The government should butt out of the marketplace completely.
Tell us a little bit about the timeline on FrackNation. When do you hope this will be in theaters?
Yeah, it'll be finished by summer. It'll be finished by June, and we're up against the multi-million-dollar machine of Hollywood. So it's a tough one, but we're planning to try and get into theaters as soon as possible after that.
All right, so you finished the filming, and you've got filming to do yet.
We have some filming to do yet. Yeah, we're not finished yet, because one of the funny aspects of this story that I say to people, and I don't need to tell people in North Dakota this is actually a breaking news story. So like 2 weeks ago or a month ago, you knew a certain amount of information. Today you know something altogether different. The story is expanding. They're finding deposits, shale deposits, in Maryland, for example, I just heard about. Arkansas is obviously there. They're talking now about, I think it's West Kansas is another area. So the story kind of is growing all the time.
Oh, sure it is.
And it's
what's amazing to me? With the vast amount of oil, some estimates that there's 24 billion barrels of oil just in the Bakken below us right now, right?
Thank God.
Think about that. But you know what? That's at today's recoverable rate of 8%. So I always tell people, think of a cell phone today versus a cell phone when Gordon Gekko was on the beach in Wall Street.
Yes.
And that one cost $7,000 and weighed 18 pounds. Now they hand them to you when you walk in the mall.
Sure.
They throw them at you. They're free.
Yeah.
Think of that evolution in technology. This is around for generations still.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. It's an amazing thing. But I so agree with Mark, and thanks a million, Mark, again for phoning up, because people should out these people. I think any crony capitalist companies should be outed. Use the marketplace, because in the end, if you're doing special deals with the government, who suffers? The ordinary people suffer. The people do really, really well when the market is allowed to operate, because people will end up with cheap stuff. We want the cheap stuff. We want reliable, cheap electricity, safely, delivered to our door, and that's what you can get. That's what you can get if the government butts out of it.
The price of gas will come down.
Correct.
But I think if we went door to door in America today, probably the thing that would worry most folks would be our debt. And 40% of our public lands are off limits right now. You could single-handedly remove our debt if you just said, okay, let's do this responsibly. Let's go do what's worked on private lands.
Sure.
And it's transforming these economies.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate this movie's out in time for the election?
Yes, very much so, because I think what's going to happen, and I think you probably know this yourself, Scott, this issue is going to be an election issue in a lot of particularly in those swing states like Ohio and Pennsylvania, by the way, particularly. But it'll be an issue in every state where there are large deposits. So you'll find this conversation happening all over the country. And so I don't care whether you're what hue you are politically. You need to be on the right side of this conversation. You need to be on the right side of this conversation. You need to be on the side that says, let's develop this shale responsibly for the benefit of everyone. This is a miracle that you've had happen here to you, and let's not spit in the face of the Creator who left it all here for us, because we're going to do great things with it. We're going to do great things. Look what we've done already. Look what we did already. Look at the internet. Look at all this great stuff we've got already.
And you know what you're going to do? You're going to do it with truth. Veritas, as our friend Andrew Breitbart would say. Veritas, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
James O'Keefe and the citizen journalist is saying this story has to be told.
Yeah.
And we're going to do it with truth.
Yeah.
We're just going to go out and tell the story.
Just tell the story. Just tell the truth, because the truth is that the truth will set us free, and the truth is beautiful, And if there's something to be, if there are challenges out there, let's face them, but let's not muddy the waters with things that aren't true.
By the way, Ann will be today in Tioga, meeting with Kathy Nessett, who's one of the foremost experts on the Bakken, just to talk about the geology of all this. We'll be at Little's Diner over the noon hour. There's an EDC meeting, actually, Tioga EDC meeting, but a chance for Little to find out just about the progress that's come as a result of this technology. Then Minot tonight, 7 o'clock at the Holiday Inn in Minot. And site of a Berg family reunion every other year for the Hannon family. So we look forward to being there. That's a good little spot there, right by the State Fairgrounds. So you got lots of stuff to see.
Great.
And tomorrow, meeting with the Lauren and Ryan Kopsing down in Bismarck. Again, the folks that know this business very well, and also the oil side and the gas side. I think it'll be a good meeting. 7 o'clock at the Doublewood tomorrow night. In Bismarck, so there are a lot of chances for you to see, and you're collecting stories, basically, right?
Yeah, I want to talk to people. I want to hear how people's experience, and so that, because I was just saying this to Scott before we went on the air. I have wanted to come here for so long. I talk about North Dakota every time I talk about the shale. I always talk about North Dakota, and I just think, God, I have to go there. I have to see this for myself. And I was like a child arriving at the airport last night. I was like a child. You arrive in the airport there at Minot, and it was Christmas. It was packed. There was people all over the place. The car rental companies didn't have enough cars for the people who were lined up. I mean, this is great news. This is marvelous. I love to see stuff like that. There's nothing sadder or lonelier or more depressing than a town boarded up with no prospects. This is good news.
It's a boom, and we're glad you're here, Ann.
Thank you.
Thanks to you and Phelim and the entire team. Can't wait to see FrackNation. We'll have you back for the debut of the film right here, maybe downtown Tioga, Fargo.
Love it.
All over the place. We'll make sure it gets seen for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Ann McElhinney. The film is FrackNation. Website is?
FrackNation.com.
Join the FrackNation community online. Keep this conversation going. And check it all out at ScottHannon.com. See you, folks.